today I have with me author Tammy Letherer, and here is her new book called Hello, Loved Ones. And I'm trying not to get a glare, but thank you so much, Tammy, for being on here today.
Thank you. It's exciting. I'm glad to be here.
You do so much more other stuff than this, but first I want to talk about your book because when I went on your website, I was like, wow, you are crazy busy, but you make everybody, I'm like, wow, she accomplishes a lot every day, but this book, I loved this book. You are an amazing author. The way you told this story, it just sucked me in. I love the characters. I loved the story so much, and I was so happy when you said you would come on, because I was like, yes, I get to talk to her about this book, and I get to show everybody, which always makes me very happy.
Me too. Thank you. I love to talk about it. It's funny because I think of those characters as sometimes as real people. And when too much time goes by and I haven't given them any thought or any attention, I sort of will have this little feeling as if they are real people, or like a friend that you've neglected for a while or haven't called up and you need to call. And I think, yeah, I need to check in with those people,
see how they are,
these fictional characters, but they do become real. So they feel like a part of the family.
Yeah, and I love the way you told everybody's side of the story. I love that. I don't know. That's what really brought me into the story, and the story itself is so multidimensional, and it made me think about it. I have 6 children, okay? And
wow.
It makes you realize, like, when there's an event, everybody's got their part of it.
Yeah.
That, it isn't just about you, and it isn't just about, like, I felt for the mom, because because I'm the mom, and she has her story, but then the kids have their story, and then her husband or ex-husband or what, like, everybody has their I want to say self-centered, but I don't really mean self-centered, but very selfish way of looking out for themselves in this story. Which we all do, which I was like, that's what I noticed in it. I was like, you don't realize how your childhood or any story, any part of your story is actually very self-centered, because all you see it through is your eyes.
Right. And I think as a writer, it's really fun to be able to do that, to take those different perspectives, different points of view, and really get into understanding how that particular event affects the different characters. And it's never black and white. It's never like, oh, that person was wrong to have that experience and my side of it is right. To me, it's really juicy because it becomes so much more complicated. And when you get inside their head, you can see that, if it's the brother, he feels this way towards his father. If it's the battered wife, she feels this way towards him. But it's never easy. It's always so complicated. And that's what I really like. And I think switching points of view can give you a way into that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I went through a divorce 5 years ago. That was not pretty. And I was talking to my second oldest son today, and, knowing I'm doing this interview, but he, it was just supposed to be this very light, like, what are you doing this week? And he started telling me some things about that I didn't know. He's 28 now, has 3 children of his own. And he's brought up something about my divorce. And I was like, whoa, I didn't even, that you were an adult. Like, I didn't think it affected him as much as it affected him. And, just hearing different things about it, I was like, see, you never know. Like, you never know those little tiny things that, and I was like, I didn't even think you knew that. Like,
Yeah.
And then I started telling him about your book, and I was like, see, goes to show that every story isn't just one story. It's so multidimensional,
Mm. Yeah, and I think that in this case too, the case of broken families or divorce or abandonment, there is a sense of the children feeling that they can't have their own feelings or their own longings for that parental relationship. Maybe there's a sense of wanting to protect the mother, or the mother's story becomes sort of the only story that counts, or whatever the case may be. But what I liked about, as I sort of went on this journey towards the end of the book, was coming to this place of the children feeling like it was okay for them to want to have
Yes.
a dad, for example, even if that person was far from perfect.
Right.
And if that meant that maybe they didn't think about the father the same way the mother did, they were allowed to have their own experience. I think that's really tough for kids.
It really
because, they choose sides whether they mean to or not. And I
Right.
think internally they think, my mom was right in this case, my dad was right in this case, and that takes away their own experience, or they don't feel like they have that permission to really bond with their parent the way they want to, because they have to have a certain story. Right. So it was really a struggle for me towards the end to think, how can these characters forge their own relationship? What can they take from this as a gift? Despite all this pain, like what can they really say? This, and I go back to the title. Love. What is one? How can I take that away from this? How can I really claim that I have these loved ones in my life, even if they have failed me? So that was the fun part for me. I mean, fun and fun.
No, but yeah, because I bonded with the moms so much because my first 3 children are with my first husband, and I was a lot younger, so I was kind of learning of what to do, but I was really trying to just protect. And he wasn't anywhere, he wasn't as extreme as what this guy did. But you still, as the mom, you're like, protect. And in protecting, what you think you're protecting them from, sometimes it's so shady as they get older, because then they turn around and go, why did you protect me from, I needed to know and I needed to be there, So it's a hard call. It's
really hard call. And it also, it's like we each have one mother, one father, and we should get to have that, whether it's, someone who has some, warts and all and has made some mistakes. So it is a really tough call. And I really felt for the mother too. I mean, it was interesting to me. I had one reader in an early reading group who really disliked the mother and just came right out of the box, this woman, just had a lot of things to say, judgments about this woman. And I was so shocked. I'd never seen her that way. I thought she was really doing the best she could, in my opinion, and that's, as she, like I said, she came to life for me. I felt a real compassion for her, and I felt her struggle. And I felt like I understood why she made some of the decisions she did. But, not every single reader will feel that way. I was surprised by this one particular woman who said, oh, she was horrible. How could she have done what she did? And so I love that. I mean, that's great to have those different reactions.
It really is. And I did find, as the story was progressing, there were times I didn't like her as much. But then I felt like I was looking at myself and being like, I kind of was that way too. Like, it's really hard to judge her because even though they saw how terrible he was, right? They still, like you said, you only get one father. But on her end, you're like, but she was the one holding it together. Like she was. So I was conflicted. Like I said, there were certain parts where I was like, oh, that was tough. But then there were other parts where I'm like, okay, but look at what she's doing. I mean, who wouldn't make some bad calls? I mean, the stress of being her, I mean, who wouldn't make a questionable call? So and I don't want to give stuff away because I want everybody to experience the way I did. I never do that because I don't believe in that. But anyway, you get to know her better. You get to understand a little bit more. But, she had some ups and downs too. But that just to me gives me, that tells how great of a writer you are. Because you can't have a one-dimensional that everybody's going to be like, oh my God, I just love her all the way through. It's not real. None of us are like that, So I thought that she was just very real. You wrote her, very real. And
Thank you. It was fun. It was fun. Like I said, it was part of the discovery is really letting her be a very flawed person and feeling that sense of, conflict. And I like to try to think in black and white, or traditionally have been sort of a black and white thinker. And this is fun to put that aside and realize nobody's black and white. We have all these different shades of gray. And I think for me, that's part of the fun of writing a character is really,
yes,
like you said, they just become more and more multidimensional.
Yes.
And sometimes even surprise me. I think, oh, this is how she or he will react in this situation because they are this type of person. And then you get into the scene and no, they, there's something complicated there, or there's another reason that they're going to choose a different behavior. So
yeah, and of course the whole family secrets thing is really big too. Like that's a big theme in it because everybody, and it's funny, I started doing my family genealogy on Ancestry.com because I interviewed somebody who was really big into it, and I was like, I never did that before. I found out some things that my grandmother lied to me about, and she's gone now, a lot of years. I was like, wait a second, she never told me about that. So it's like every family has these like secrets, Yeah.
And in fact, a lot of the inspiration for this book comes from my family, the women in my family, and some that I had heard about my grandmother. And so the father character in this story is based, a lot of it's based on my imagination, but also based on stories of that I've heard about my grandfather, my mom's father. Mm-hmm. So the structure and the family dynamic and what actually happened in terms of him leaving, being an alcoholic, that's all true. And so that was fun for me too, is to take these events that I had heard about and then just use that as a springboard and create something completely, from my imagination. But there are some things in there that might seem like they're made up that I might surprise readers. I said, guess what? That really happened. That's true. So, it's always truth is stranger than fiction. So that helps.
Right. But, and I was, when I first started reading this, I couldn't tell, like, what genre would you put this in? Like, I didn't look it up. So, I got it from you. But I'm, like, thinking to myself as I'm reading it, like, faith-based? Would you say it was, like, kind of a faith-based book, or would you not put it in that?
I tend to say family saga is sort of a broad term. I toyed for a while with really wondering, is it young adult? Because the main character is 16.
Right.
But when I wrote this, we started this many, many years ago. It was really before young adult blew up into such a big. And so now I think I think it could be considered young adult. It does have some mature topics, which today young adult novels do. Right. But I think adult has come to be synonymous with a lot of like dystopia, fantasy and stuff like that. So it didn't feel like a real fit for me for young adult because it is very realistic. So I always say realistic fiction, family saga. I think that's where it lands.
Yeah, I was wondering about the young adult, but I agree with you. Sometimes the young adult takes on an almost, I want to say, darker tone. Yeah. This does not have a dark tone to it. So, and it's weird because you're like, it's young adult. Like, definitely young adult can read it, but it's like, it almost doesn't belong in the young adult section because it's not dark enough in a weird way, Like, I don't know. Sometimes I find their books are pretty...
for a while. Yeah, I wondered if it could almost be considered historical in a sense because, again, without giving too much away, there is, though, the theme of teenage pregnancy. Yes. And it is in 1968. Yes. And there are choices that come up around that pregnancy. And actually one of the inspirations for a major plot twist in the book came from an article in Reader's Digest about teenage pregnancy, illegal abortion in 1968. Wow. And so there is a scene that's again set based on reality on what really did occur in 1968, and when a girl was faced with that situation. So sometimes I think, boy, I could play up that historical aspect because I think that's fascinating. I love that idea.
Yeah, because most people think of historical fiction as it has to be like World War II, Civil War. But that's not true. This is now how many years? I mean, 1968 is a long time ago. So I think you really could too. I mean, I would put it in that category because it does have very much the feel of the 60s in it, Yeah. So.
Yeah, although, that's a lot of that's my imagining. And, well, I was born late 60s, but I wasn't really aware of the
Right.
60s. But I didn't do a lot of research into it. And it's not historical fiction the way I would classify it, in that it has a lot of, research behind the scenes and descriptions and stuff like that. I'm more character driven. I like to dialogue. I like to be in the moment. I like to write present fiction. And so I wouldn't classify it historical, I guess, for that sense. But I do think that particular piece of it, that there is, this major event that happens that is based on a factual account. I think that is an interesting piece.
Yes,
so,
absolutely.
Classifying things is hard, though, isn't it?
It is. It is. I always think that you guys have such a hard, because especially, and okay, so you are in the creative writing business. I mean, you help people with their writing, and isn't that always the one thing that people say? Okay, well, know your audience, know your genre, know what you're. But I have read so many books that I'm like, that doesn't really fit in every genre. That could be like 5 or 6 genres. It could be, so to me, it doesn't have to, I don't feel like, but I mean, you're the coach. I saw, like, you do all this coaching work and writing, and, is that what you tell your people that you help, like your students? Do you tell them that?
Well, that's a tough one, because I really believe that you write from your heart and you write what you're drawn to. And to me personally, that does not really work. Right. If I come at something from a marketing perspective, or what I think people will want, it just doesn't resonate with me. I don't feel inspired, and I don't feel like I'm true to myself. I really have to let go of all of that. I just have to just really make it almost my own process, and let go of the outcome, and not try to control that in any way. So I think naturally I may get a picture of someone in my mind that I would like to be writing to. I mean, it tends to be probably someone like me. If I'm having an experience, my second book is a memoir about divorce as a spiritual journey.
It's coming out.
And so, yes, coming out next year. And so I'm sure that I'm imagining a woman that's going through a life, devastation, or having this sort of situation. And I do like to think that, ideally she would have my book in her lap, and it would be giving her some comfort, like, hey, I'm going to get through this. I'm going to find myself. And actually, this is going to turn out to be the best thing that ever happened to me. So that does help in those times. If I can, I almost think of it like a contract or a covenant between me and that particular reader. Like, there's someone out there that's waiting for this, and this is going to help them. Right. So I keep it really personal. I don't think in terms of mass market or, large amounts of people. I just think, is there a friend that I would like to share this with? And that helps me stay focused.
I feel like our age group is, we are the readers. I mean, let's be honest. Like, we are, like, everybody I talk to. I mean, it's our generation. We grew up with books. We are the readers for, especially these kind of books, I feel like, from the people that I talk to. But, okay, when I was on your website, I was like, okay, so are you helping people write, when you say write your story, is it like a memoir? Are you trying to help them write a memoir, or or fiction? I mean, basically, is it like nonfiction, fiction,
Anything.
Anything.
Yeah, okay. Anything. What I really get excited about is helping someone find their voice and have the courage to really tell their story. Because I find that so often the biggest block is just this fear. It's like it's a fear to really be honest, to really say what you want to say. And I love that experience when someone has this moment of lighting up and saying, it's exactly what I wanted to say. I just couldn't get it out, or I just didn't, I didn't know the story. And what surprises me so much, and I shouldn't say this because I do the same thing, but we are so used to our own stories that we discount them, and we think, it doesn't matter to anyone else. No one else is interested in that. And that is the biggest mistake. I worked with a guy not long ago who was 76 years old, I believe, and was writing his memoir about being in prison as a white-collar criminal.
Oh, wow.
And amazing background of growing up in the South, before, when it wasn't really, it was still segregated. And he just happened to throw out during one of our sessions that his mother had murdered his father. And this was not, it wasn't even part of his story in the book. So
you're like,
back up. I mean, I know this may be painful, but this makes you who you are. This is a huge part of your story. And, and as we got into that, it really was this wealth of just, I mean, it wasn't just a shocking story for the sake of being a shocking story. It was where his heart was. There was a lot of pain there.
Right.
And it was what led him to become the person he became, and to have the faith. And that was what he was writing about in his book, was, having faith in God through this situation. He wanted to be able to minister to other people. And so it's like, yeah, you got to go there.
Yes.
You have to show it. You have to tell us, bring those skeletons out of the closet. And so that's an extreme example. But I think with writers of, all kinds of writers, with all of us, we gloss over things that really make us who we are, because we either, maybe we're embarrassed, or maybe we think people don't care, or we just think it's insignificant. But I love that process of helping someone find their story and really see what it is that makes them special, that they may be just dismissing.
Yeah, and I think that when we're in it, I mean, especially, okay, so I'm 52 now. Of course, there's a lot of stuff, that's happened in the last 50 years. But when we're in it, we're like, oh, this is really, painful, and I should really write about this. And then we distance ourselves from it. Like, I had a son who was in the Persian Gulf War. Okay, he was in Iraq. And when I was in it, I was like, I'm going to write about this someday. This is good. I've went through a lot. But as soon as he got out and started having children, and, it's like we distance, and then we're like, I don't really remember. Was it that hard? Well, it was kind of hard. I don't know. There's something about that memory that we kind of make it better than when we were in it or something. Like, we don't have, and so you have to go, like you said, kind of go back in it in order to bring it up again, Yeah,
and I think that's what's so hard about writing, why a lot of people can't do it, or don't want to do it, I should say. I mean, I think everybody can do it.
Right.
But, it really requires, in my opinion, getting down to the nitty gritty. And that's where the best stories are. You have to be willing to kind of, they say, open a vein and bleed. It sounds a bit over dramatic and sort of cliche, but I think that's what is required. For me, what I see in writers, working with writers, is when they're courageous enough to take that step and really be brave and say, this is my story. I'm going to tell it my way. And they let go of that worry of what will people think, or what will so-and-so think. Writing a memoir is my second book. I know what that's like. It's really tough.
Right.
To those decisions when you're telling a story that involves other people in your life. But, it's sort of like, if you're going to be a writer, you got to go all in. I mean, you're telling your story, and you can't do that halfway.
You can't hold back on it.
Yeah, you can't hold it back.
And I think that's what's awesome about having you being a writing coach, because, think about it. It's kind of a new thing. Like, back, 50 years ago, people weren't really necessarily having writing coaches, but you get to tell somebody, because that is what stops a lot of people from writing. But having somebody like you, and you're like, okay, I have the story, and I don't know, and then you can be like, okay, well, where are you going to start, and what are you going to do, and that really helps writers, and I think it's really cool that you do that. I really do.
Thanks. Well, I benefited myself when on my memoir. I thought that it was finished. I had a first draft, and I decided that I would work with a story coach to get it ready for the book proposal, to help me. Actually, I was thinking she would help me get the book proposal written. And what ended up happening was we went into the manuscript, and, where I thought the book was ending, she's like, no, that's not the end. Oh. That's just the middle. That's just like the hard part. You need to go through this step and this step and this step. And of course I thought, oh my God, this is going to kill me. This will kill me. I cannot do it. But she was right, and I knew it immediately that I had, tried to take the easy way out. I tried to wrap it up with a nice
little,
neat.
yeah.
I had that experience with her, and it really helped me so much. And I think it's so important for writers. It's tough, and I experienced this myself. It's such a solitary profession. It's something that obviously we need a lot of alone time, and it's easy to get sucked up in that. I do too. I can spend way too much time alone, and I forget that I need to check in with other writers or have collaboration. And it is so valuable because, you need someone, and this is what I think is great about coaching. You need somebody to really give you a reality check.
Yeah.
Not only times you say, you know what, you're not going deep enough, or you're not really telling the story you need to tell, but also all the hand holding that comes with just the creative process in general and how tough it can be, and those moments of wanting to give up or saying I can't do it. I don't have the, I compare myself. Who's going to care about this? Someone else has already written it. There's a lot of negative voices and negative energy, and I think that it's helpful to have a partnership with somebody who knows all that, who's been through it, and also struggles with it. It's not like, oh, I'm the expert, I've got this beat. It's like, okay, yeah, I know, I'm having the same kind of day. Here's what I do. I have a bag of tricks. I pull out this trick. I pull out that trick. So it's a constant struggle in a way. It's always a journey, but it's so satisfying at the same time. So
I can't say enough about it. I mean, I love your writing. I love your style of writing. I think everybody should go get this book because I love the title. I love the cover. I love everything about this book. Hello, Loved Ones. And it is amazing. And I hope that we can talk when your next book comes out, when your memoir comes out, because I would love to talk to you again.
Yes, thank you.
And I have her links. I mean, you write for the Huffington Post. You have I will put all of Tammy's links on the bottom here. You can find her anywhere, and I'll put the link for the book. And thank you so much for coming on today.
Great. Thank you, Michelle. It was great.
Thanks. Talk to you later, Tammy.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.